guys, welcome or welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. It is so greatly appreciated. Truly is. So today we're going back down the Reddit rabbit hole with a new story. I have not read this story at all. I don't know what it's about. I'm actually going to be reacting to it for the first time with you guys right now. Being stalked by my neighbor. Hi everyone. I'm really writing this out as a way to vent because I'm in a situation where I feel really stuck. Any advice is appreciated, but I'm not sure there's anything that can be said that will actually help. I've tried just about everything. I'm going to start from the beginning. This is a story 2 years in the making, so I'll try to be as thorough as possible. In 2019, I graduated with my master's degree and moved to a relatively rural area for my PhD. Thinking we'd make an investment, my dad and I purchased a house. The intent was to rent it out once I completed my PhD. This house was only a block away from a dive bar where my dad was able to make some pretty good friends. He introduced me to everyone, and everyone let me know that I would be so happy in my new house because my next door neighbor was the absolute nicest guy you could ever meet. So we met the neighbor, and he did seem nice enough. He suggested we exchange numbers just in case I ever needed anything, and I thought that was a good idea. What's the worst that could happen? A few days later, my dad left to go back to his house in another state, and I was left to my own devices. I've been left to my own devices a few times too. Never ends well. Literally, the day he left, it started. My neighbor texted me while I was away and let me know he left a gift for me on my front porch. In this text exchange, he started using pet names like Sweetie and Cutie. I went home and he had left a hand-painted feeding dish for my cats in my mailbox. At this point, I wasn't that alarmed. He was just being nice, I thought. The next day, he sent me more texts with pet names, and I took the opportunity to make sure he knew I was not interested in anything romantic. He replied back with a rambling text about how all a person ever needs is friends, and he would like to be friends with me. After that, he would send me texts frequently. Everything from inviting me fishing to telling me he left more gifts on my porch. I would often not reply, or I would tell him I'm busy. I didn't want to be rude, but I also had no interest in any sort of relationship with him other than neighborly. One night, I got a text from the manager of the bar down the street, letting me know that if my neighbor knocked on my door, I shouldn't answer. She then told me that my neighbor had walked onto the bar with a hatchet and told the bartender he was hearing voices that got louder as he got closer to the bar. He threatened to unalive someone with a hatchet if the voices didn't stop. They called the police, and the police took the hatchet from him but made no arrest. The manager of the bar picked me up, and I spent the night at her house. She told me that the police said my neighbor was on meth. After that, I tried to keep my distance even more, but things got even weirder. One day, I went out to my car to find a dead squirrel in my driveway. The squirrel had very clearly been run over and moved to right in front of my driver's side door. Ugh. I just stepped over it, got in my car, and left. When I returned home, the squirrel was gone. Shortly after, I received a text from my neighbor that said, "Someone or something put a dead squirrel in your driveway. Don't worry, I moved it for you." I felt like this was a weird way to word this, and I suspect he's the one who put the squirrel in my driveway. Another time, I walked out of my house to see he had placed an unspent shotgun shell on the bricks in his front yard. He came out and told me that it was to serve as a warning for anyone walking between our houses. For the next couple months, I did my best to avoid him. He would text me inviting me over, and I would come up with an excuse or just ignore him completely. I wanted to remain cordial since he was my neighbor, but it was getting very annoying and I was uncomfortable. He would text me as soon as I got home, telling me that he was watching me come and go from my house. Around Halloween, he had crafted a large casket and wrote, "Here lies the last son of a bitch who played mind games." November 2012. What the All this time, still sending me texts. Eventually, I got fed up and I stopped responding completely. Less than 2 weeks after I stopped responding completely, he threw a 50-pound flower pot at my front door. You know those big concrete planters? Yeah, one of those. I called the police, who advised me to get a stalking no contact order. A few days later, I was watching TV when a notification popped up that my neighbor was trying to cast a video to my screen. I declined it twice. I filed another report with police. What does that mean, cast a video to my screen? Like he was trying to hack into her TV to play a video for her? Is that what that means? What does that mean? I'm guessing that's what that means. During this time, I started the process of getting a stalking no contact order. I saw 3 different victim advocates who all told me different things. I went out of town for a conference, and during that time, someone had attempted to break into my home. I had an ADT security system, so while they didn't succeed, I was aware of the attempt. After the conference, I came home to the entire world shutting down because of the pandemic. I was trapped in my home 24/7 with my stalker neighbor next door. Luckily, court proceedings for protection orders didn't stop. Well, that was good. Right before court, he sent me a text telling me he was sorry for what he'd done, that he could tell when he saw me outside that he made me uncomfortable. And he went on to tell me he can tell my hair has gotten longer and I look beautiful. I went to court and provided all of the evidence I had, the timeline of everything that had happened, the text he sent me asking if I wanted a massage, the text I sent him telling him the way he was speaking to me was inappropriate, the text saying he knew he made me uncomfortable. I told the judge that I suspected he had attempted to break into my home while I was out of town. The kicker is, he didn't deny any of it. Actually, he told the judge that he took full accountability for everything. He said he was in recovery and was trying to turn over a new leaf. He didn't oppose the protection order at all. So, in March of 2020, I actually received the stalking no contact order. Oh, okay. I mean, something tells me it doesn't end here. Everything was pretty quiet for a while. I mean, he did some weird shit, but that's because he's a weird guy. It wasn't anything that made me fear for my safety. That is, until he got on drugs again. At this time, we found an unspent shotgun casing in my flower bed. It was consistent with the one he had previously used to send a warning. This occurred a couple months after I started dating my boyfriend, and I suspect it was a warning to him. I suspect you're probably right. He moved in pretty quickly, but everything turned out fine. We're still together and as happy in our relationship as we can be. Good for you. New Year's 2021. I was awoken to yelling. I turned on my security cameras and got footage of him sticking his head out his window and screaming obscenities at my bedroom window for about 7 minutes. Doesn't sound like a long time, but when your stalker is screaming threats and obscenities, 7 minutes is a long time. He called me a Harlow. The hell is a Harlow? He said, Happy fucking New Year. He said he was going to blow up his house with the gas line. I called the police, who responded. They told me that he never said my name, so they can't prove it was a violation of the protection order. Come on. The officer said, and I quote, "There's nothing illegal about yelling in your own house." They left without even speaking to him. All I could do at this point was do my best to avoid him. I parked on the street because my driveway is pretty close to his front porch. I got used to living with my curtains drawn. I always made sure my cameras were charged, all 5 of them. Yes, because of him, I spent over $1,000 on cameras. Every inch of my yard is covered. Since then, he's been seen by me and by other neighbors talking to people who aren't there. Going outside and screaming nonsense. Things like, I have Cheerios on my necklace. Oh my God, I'm sorry. What? I have Cheerios on my necklace, or I'll put my penis in your butt. What? The actual, oh my good God. I'm not even joking. I don't think anybody can make something like that up. This basically brings me to last week. In the morning, I was getting ready for the day when I heard screaming. Someone is going to die over this sweatshirt. I turned on the cameras. I got footage of him walking around the alley behind my house screaming. Are you fucking proud? How about I get my shotgun? I'll get everybody all fired up. I called the police. Once again, they didn't charge him with violation of the protection order. Instead, they gave him an ordinance violation for disturbing the peace. Doesn't that make him more mad? Right? I feel like that makes shit way worse. The police told me that it seems like he's off his medication again, and that was that. They left. Update. Hi guys. No one really asked for it, but I'm doing an update because I got a lot of good advice since my last post. I reached out to my neighbor's family and let them know that I fear for my life. I told them that there's a way they can get him institutionalized through the courthouse if he was refusing to seek mental health treatment. His family just said that they would talk to him, have a discussion with him, etc. And that they were aware of the method to get him committed. This was almost 2 weeks ago at this point. Well, that pretty much backfired. Last night at approximately 10:30, he was yelling at my camera. He was saying a lot of nonsensical things, but at one point he said that there was nothing wrong with his head or medication and that I should try out a psych ward for my motherfucking self. Of course, I called the police because I consider this to be a violation of the no contact order. The police came and I got the worst officer. He told me that it wasn't stalking because he was talking to my camera, not to me. He didn't even go over and talk to my neighbor. He said he would send the report to the state's attorney's office. I actually do research in the courthouse, and while I was hesitant to bring this up in the course of my professional responsibilities, I finally bit the bullet and did it. I wanted to do everything the right way, go through the police and send it up the chain, but apparently the police make it impossible to do that. I spoke with an attorney today and she was very upset at the way everything has been handled. Fair. The report had not been sent to their office as of noon today. She called and left a message for the officer for the report and is awaiting to hear back. She told me she will call me tomorrow with an update. At this point, I will be continuing to advocate for myself directly to the attorney. I will be sending every ounce of evidence, including pictures and videos, to the attorney with the hopes that we can file multiple charges of stalking against him. Of course, I understand not everything may be prosecutable, but I know at least a few things which should stick. I'm really happy to say that I'm satisfied with the way the state's attorney's office is handling it at this point. I have gotten further with them in one day than I have with the police department in 18 months. That being said, I'm still looking for a new house. Update 2. Last time I updated, I ended after I had spoken to the attorney at the courthouse. I had sent them all the evidence they need, and to this day, I am still waiting to hear any updates at all from them. I know the attorney handling my case is swamped, so I have given them some room to breathe. But I'm back to a point where I may start pushing again. After the outburst where he screamed to my cameras that I needed to try out a psych ward for myself, my neighbor went on another tirade. He was screaming about how he could see a spirit in the moon or something, and was just generally yelling nonsense at our camera. While it was all nonsense, it was very clear that he was speaking to our cameras. I called the police and they came again and told me that there was nothing they could do because he was on his own property, blah, blah, blah. Then, while the police were there, he started up again and was screaming while standing on his picnic table about how he doesn't have to apologize to the police, to the FBI, to the university nearby, or anyone. As soon as the police shined their flashlights on him, he said, "I know, I'm sorry. So much for not needing to apologize, huh?" He went on to say that everywhere he goes, he gets picked on by us, by Walmart, by everyone. Walmart? Walmart? Apparently, everyone is just picking on him and he's tired of it. So that's why he's screaming and standing on his picnic table. I'm sorry, it's not funny. Basically, like, kind of funny. A little bit. A little bit. The police still didn't do anything and told me that if they arrested him, it would be unconstitutional. They went on to tell me that they have colleagues who know my neighbor's family, and they're confident that my stalker neighbor isn't capable of unaliving. After that, things were kind of quiet for a while. Once again, there were weird things that happened or instances of him staring at my house or being an issue to other neighbors, but to us, not so much. I can live with him just being weird. I'm not a difficult neighbor. You really don't sound like one, to be honest. It sounds like you put up with a lot of shit. As long as you're not putting dead squirrels in my driveway, screaming at me, or trying to break into my home, I don't have any complaints. Listen, that's reasonable. Like, fair. I'll give you that. It's very reasonable. That is until this week. 2 days ago, I got a notification that there was motion near the east side of my house, which is where my neighbor lives. I look at the cameras and he's bending down doing something, and I didn't think anything of it at first. That is until he was there for a long time and I kept getting notifications. So I look outside. Lo and behold, my neighbor has started 2 very, very small fires on his side of the property line. Why? I'm not sure. He set them and then walked away. My boyfriend and I considered calling the police, but the fires were so small and ended up going out on their own that we decided it wasn't worth it. All the police would do is show up and maybe give him an ordinance violation for illegal burning. At that time, I considered it a warning because I was due to testify in court against him later in the week. Today, actually, nothing of substance came from court. He didn't show up and he got a default fine of $250 for screaming in the back alley, which I described in a previous post. After this, I spoke with a different non-stalker neighbor who asked me if stalker neighbor had been giving me issues lately. Apparently, stalker neighbor had been giving them issues by taking pictures of their house and doing other nonsense in the alley behind their backyard. Apparently, it was enough to cause alarm to the neighbors, but I don't know exactly what it was that he was doing behind their house. Another neighbor had also come to me and told me that stalker neighbor had been antagonizing him on his bike by following him around and hitting his back tire. I also have him on video screaming at the neighborhood kids while they play on their bikes. Clearly, this is not an issue with just me anymore. One neighbor told me her children don't feel safe playing outside anymore. However, I'm the only one with a restraining order against him. Then that brings me to today, which today's incident is very, very much grounded in suspicion and speculation because I honestly have no idea what happened. But I find the entire thing very suspicious. So, take this information with a grain of salt. The house behind ours caught fire and was engulfed in flames. The whole house is destroyed. Since it just happened today, there isn't any official ruling about how the fire started. But I've been told that it started on the porch and that it was an arson fire. How anyone knows it was an arson fire at this point is beyond me. And I really am not sure that this is the case. Small town gossip goes wild and may not be accurate, so I'm not quite jumping to conclusions just yet. However, if it comes out officially that it's an arson fire, I'm going to be highly suspicious of my neighbor. I'm very hesitant to send the police the videos of my neighbor starting fires in between our houses just a couple days before because the police never take me seriously. I'm afraid of always reporting things and being treated as the boy who cried wolf. So I'll just keep it to myself for now. If they come out seeking tips or information from the public, then I'll send them the footage. But until then, I have no reason to believe that the police will do anything about the information I provided them. So that's where we are. I've gotten my finances in order to where I can get a mortgage, and I have a meeting with a mortgage lender next week. Hopefully, I will be able to get the F out of here before too long. I'm afraid of the fucker burning down my house or doing something else ridiculous. Edit to add. After I posted this, another strange incident happened. My neighbor was in his backyard having a fire in his fire pit and spraying down his whole yard with a hose. Not just his yard, but also his garage and shed. I was so paranoid about this, I was just watching my camera like a hawk. I was really afraid he was going to set my house on fire. Eventually, I got tired and decided to lay down and try to sleep. One of my front cameras had died, and while I knew I needed to get a battery into it, I thought I could wait until the morning. It was a doorbell camera, and while that covers a small portion of the porch, it's not good for security. Usually one of the other cameras I have in the front, 3 total cameras in front that capture different parts of the porch, catch what people standing on the porch are doing, so I thought it was going to be fine. I was wrong. At like 1:30, someone pounded on our door, very obviously trying to wake us up. I was so scared someone was coming to tell me my house was on fire. I jump up and look out the window and no one is there. I'm totally freaked the fuck out at this point and decide to call 911. We didn't go outside until they arrived, and then we noticed water or some other liquid on the porch, but nothing was fucking caught on video. The police went over and told him to cut it out because they were well aware that it was him. They said he had a friend over with him, so it's possible it could be his friend too. Thankfully, nothing else happened that night, but I still didn't sleep. I'm honestly pretty mad at myself that I didn't go change the battery, but the doorbell one, which is the one that died, is the least reliable anyway, because it barely even catches me leaving my house. And the other front one usually picks up whenever someone goes to the door. I just didn't want to go outside on my porch at midnight, and my boyfriend was already asleep. Regardless, it'll damn sure never happen again because we added another camera to the blind spot. That's 6 cameras total. Last night, I was awoken to hammering outside my window at 1 a.m. He was cutting down his privacy fence horizontally. I called the police for a noise complaint and they just told him to stop, and that was that. As I write this, he is outside continuing to horizontally cut down his privacy fence. That means the privacy fence only stands about 3 feet tall now. This was the one thing that made me feel relatively safe about hanging out in my backyard, and now that's gone. All of this to say, I'm fucking tired. I don't blame you. I just want to live in a house where I can be sure that my neighbor won't try to unalive me, where I can feel confident that he's not going to try to break in. My boyfriend and I are trying to buy a house to move, but it's difficult. I'm a PhD student, so I don't make very much money. Renting won't work because I have 4 cats, plus my partner's cat and dog, although we have a place secured for them if necessary. And finding a place to rent with so many animals is difficult, if not impossible. I refuse to rehome them, so maybe it's partially my fault. I'm stuck in this situation. My dad has agreed to co-sign on another mortgage, and I've gotten a second job. We should be able to save up enough money within a few months, but until then, I'm stuck. Just don't know what else to do. I'm tired, I'm angry, so I figure I'd write this to vent. If you made it this far, thanks for reading it all. There's still so many different instances that I've left out. I'm just so exhausted. Okay, update 3. The prosecutors let me know they will not be filing any charges, so I've lost all faith that anyone will help me. Despite the videos, despite the witnesses, none of this matters. This comes after I got him on video threatening to R-word an old lady down the street And after there were other individuals who witnessed him threaten to unalive me and other neighbors. I'm still waiting to get approval on my mortgage, but I'm supposed to close on November 18th, 2021. She wrote this on November 2nd, 2021. There's been a lot of uncertainty surrounding whether it will actually be approved because half of my income is ineligible to be counted. So I've had to jump through a lot of hoops with cosigners, etc. But I'm supposed to find out tomorrow definitively if I can get a mortgage. If I don't get approved, I guess I'll just be lying about my animals and renting somewhere. Renting is just going to significantly impact my finances and make it so much harder on me in the long run. So I'm not pleased about it. Not only am I being pushed out of my home, it'd be hurting me financially, but he'll be just fine. This man will continue terrorizing the neighborhood while everyone around him suffers. Oh, January 20th, 2022. Update. It's been a while since I've given an update, and things have gotten a little wild since. I did end up moving in mid-November. I'm far enough away from my ex-neighbor that I barely see him in person. We still own the old house, so I've had to go back and forth to take care of the property and maintain the cameras. Since then, I've still had to deal with his nonsense. Right before we moved, we called the police because he was pouring gasoline on his house. What? Dude told the police that the reason he was pouring gasoline on his house was because there were people living in his attic and he wanted to scare them out of his house. The police acknowledged that this was disturbing behavior and said they were going to try to commit him to a mental hospital, but I don't think that ever happened. They said there's nothing illegal about pouring gasoline on your own house. It's only illegal if you light it. Did you know that? What? Well, why the fuck else would you pour gasoline on your house if not to set it on fire? He also sent a long, rambling text to someone talking about how the entire block was in a conspiracy against him. He called me that bitch in the text and said that if people didn't stop talking about him, the pieces will fall where they may. We moved about 3 days later. I'm so glad I moved because I know I was in real danger. Actually, I agree with you. I think that you were as well. After we moved, there was an incident where he was standing behind the property, staring at the house, holding a baseball bat. And then he proceeded to light the baseball bat on fire and swing it around. Another incident, he was on the property by what used to be my bedroom window. He shoved a stick down into the earth below the window. Very strange. Called the police and he was ticketed for trespassing. Finally, this past Monday, January 17th, his house was set on fire. The fire originated in the attic. I was called by an insurance fire investigator who asked for all of my fire-related evidence. He told me that it's pretty obvious that the fire was started by someone. There was nothing in his attic that could have started the fire. They're still investigating, but it looks like he might actually face some consequences for his actions this time. It's about time. At the very least, it's looking like the insurance company won't pay. He won't be able to live in that home any longer unless his family pays out of pocket. All of this is to say I'm safe. My mental health is so much better than it was 3 months ago. My animals are stoked about the new house. There's a lot more windows. Thanks everyone for being concerned about me. It looks like this terrifying chapter of my life is finally coming to an end. Oh my God, damn. Well, I'm incredibly happy for you. And I wish you and your boyfriend a lot of peace and happiness. You guys are still here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you and I appreciate you so, so, so very much. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you haven't yet and you feel so inclined to. because it really helps me out and I really appreciate it. And until next time, stay safe out there.